I have great pleasure in welcoming the Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, His Excellency Muhammad Nawaz Sharif. I invite him to address the General Assembly.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we congratulate Mr. Peter Thompson on his election as President of the 71st session of the General Assembly. We agree that implementation of the Sustainable Development Agenda should be the focus of this session. We also pay tribute to Mr. Liketoft for his capable stewardship of the 70th session. Mr. President, today, 3 decades after the end of the Cold War, our multipolar world is more free and vibrant, yet still chaotic and turbulent, more interdependent, but more unequal, more prosperous, yet still afflicted with poverty. We see spectacular progress, but also unprecedented human suffering. The world is at a historic inflection point. The international order established after the Second World War is passing away, but a new order has yet to emerge. Competition between the major powers is becoming more confrontational. This can pose serious threats to peace across Asia. A new Cold War threatens to engulf Europe. The momentum there towards greater union has already reversed. Barricades and walls are going up, especially against the tide of misery flowing out of a turbulent Middle East. In many countries, intolerance has revived the ghost of xenophobia and Islamophobia. Turmoil is intensifying in the Middle East. International efforts to defeat Daesh are therefore urgent. For this, it is essential to reconcile the divergent objectives and priorities of regional and external powers. Peace cannot be built when injustice prevails. The long festering tragedy of Palestine demands determined action by the international community. Mr. President, after decades of strong growth, the world economy has reached a plateau. Despite this adverse international economic environment, my government has in the last three years moved the country towards robust growth. We have fully integrated the 2030 Development Agenda into our own economic and social strategy. This rests on our conviction that people are the true wealth of our nation and that it is human development which will determine our future destiny. Mr. President, our priority goal of economic development requires internal peace and stability. My country has been the principal victim of terrorism, including that supported, sponsored, and financed from abroad. We will not allow externally sponsored terrorism and threats of destabilization to cause turbulence in Pakistan. Tens of thousands of our citizens and thousands of our security personnel have been killed or injured in terrorist attacks. This has only reinforced our resolve to eliminate the scourge of terrorism. Our comprehensive strategy of law enforcement and targeted military operations has produced remarkable results and enabled Pakistan to turn the tide against terrorists. Pakistan's Zarbayaz operation is the largest, most robust and most successful anti-terrorism campaign anywhere in the world, deploying 200,000 of our security forces. Our comprehensive action plan has the complete endorsement of our people and our parliament, as well as our security forces, all of whom have made heroic sacrifices to defeat terrorism. Mr. President, terrorism, however, is now a global phenomenon which must be addressed comprehensively and in all its forms, including state terrorism. The international community must coordinate its efforts to accomplish this. These efforts should be taken collectively and not unilaterally by the passage of any laws with extraterritorial application targeted against certain countries. We will not win the fight against terrorism and violent extremism so long as we do not address their root causes. These lie in poverty and ignorance, political and social injustice and oppression, foreign intervention and occupation and denial of the legitimate rights of the people and nations, especially the right to self-determination. Until these underlying causes are addressed, it will be difficult to counter the twisted narrative of violent extremists and terrorists. Mr. President, after 15 years of the current war in Afghanistan, the international community agrees that the only road to a lasting peace in that country is through a dialogue between the government in Kabul and the Afghan Taliban. Pakistan has long proposed this as the most viable course to end decades of conflict and suffering in Afghanistan. Based on this belief in a negotiated peace and in response to requests from President Ashraf Ghani, we have been facilitating the process of reconciliation in Afghanistan. There have been setbacks. That, however, is not a sufficient reason to abandon the path of peace and rely on the military option, which has failed for the past decade and a half to stabilize Afghanistan. Progress will be assured only when the Afghan parties themselves conclude that there is no military solution to the Afghan war and work assiduously through a meaningful dialogue process for achieving reconciliation and peace at home. Mr. President, over 3.5 decades of conflict and chaos in Afghanistan has had grave security and economic consequences for Pakistan.